I'm Lisa, and you're with Velo Dulce, the show where we talk women, cycling, and life. Velo Dulce is from the Italian phrase La vita dolce, which means the good life. These are stories from women around the world on finding the good life through life on a bicycle. So, hailing from Switzerland, Ariane Lüthi is arguably the country's most prolific cross-country mountain bike racer. Ariane is 4 times Swiss national champion. She has won the iconic and aptly named Cape Epic 5 times, 2 with a mixed team, 3 in a women's all team. She rides for Team HCK on Orbea bikes, but even now, 9 years since her first Cape Epic victory, she's been breaking barriers. She recently won the Swiss Epic with former competitor Robin de Groot. But that's not all. Ariane has been extremely vocal on her challenges. And for me, I often think we find the sweet life on the other side of challenge or even despite it. And that's why I wanted to chat to Ariane today. Ariane, thank you for joining me.
Hi, hello. Thanks
Hi.
for having me.
Thank you for taking
Very
time
nice.
out of your busy schedule. Um, yeah, I want to jump right into things with you. I mean, for me, it's incredible to see how you're performing, but I want to start at the beginning. I mean, because you only got into cycling when you were 26. You started as a swimmer.
Yes, yeah. I started swimming actually also quite late. 13 for a swimmer, that's pretty late. So I didn't really make it to a very high level. I just made it to a national level. My dad used to be my coach. Actually, he got me into the swimming. I was never too fond of it, but then just kind of ended up being in the sport together with my family. My sister swam as well. And that definitely was a good foundation in terms of endurance and discipline and doing intervals and all kinds of things. Afterwards, I did my studies, I actually started the sports studies and ended my pool career. No license anymore, but did like lots of different sports during my sports studies and kind of got a bit into triathlon. That's where the cycling came into play. I needed a road bike. I bought myself a road bike for some triathlons. But also there, it was really just an amateur sport, a hobby next to all else I was doing. I was being a swimming coach during my studies to earn a bit of money. And really just very multi-sporty, doing everything that I could. And then I actually just wanted to do this one triathlon that started in my hometown called the Inferno Triathlon in Thun. A very long distance triathlon. It took me at the end almost 11 hours, and it was off-road as well. So it was both on the road and an off-road part of it on the bike. And that's why I needed the mountain bike. And that's how I got into mountain biking in the first place, to do this triathlon. It was back then, it was really daunting and challenging for me to go down these gravel roads. And when I think now, and I mean, it's very close to me, this route, it's really not technical at all. And it's so funny when I think back how scared I was going down these gravel roads because they were a bit steep. And now it's just really not technical at all for me.
Wow.
And that was when I was kind of 26. I got my first mountain bike to train for that.
Amazing. I often think the bicycle is such a metaphor for life. We can go so much further than we think we can. And for those listeners who just to give some context, I mean, I've been cycling for a good many years. I don't think I could complete one day of the Cape Epic. It is,
I'm sure you will.
for the listeners, it's 7 days, right?
8. Well, a
8,
prologue and 7
right,
stages.
8 days. And yeah, to say it's tough is would be doing it a disservice. And I want to talk about that. Let's talk about pain. Because I mean, you have to be able to suck up a lot of pain. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, cycling, and especially marathon, I mean, also road cycling, if you watch Tour de France and you see those guys after a mountaintop finish, it's definitely something that's very important in our sport, to be able to suffer. You go through a lot of pain. I mean, in comparison to cross country, in marathon, the pain is maybe not as intense, but it's for long. So you really have to grind your teeth for very long. And Cape Epic, from about stage 5 at the very latest, it's already painful when you just start your stage. And yeah, it's, how do you get there? It's hard to say. For me, it was probably in a way also therapeutic, cycling as such. Not necessarily just about the pain. I mean, just it kind of brings you a little bit, the training when you, let's say, doing endurance rides, intervals are a bit less like that. There you really need all your focus on what you're doing. Yeah, it kind of brings you in a bit of a meditative state, and it helped me to sort things out in my head. And in a way, I think, well, I had quite a lot of issues mentally, and I think I also in a way needed to punish myself for certain things, I guess. I definitely also, already in swimming, I could sometimes go beyond what's still kind of reasonable. And I mean, I could completely exhaust myself to the extent that once my dad actually had to pull me out of the water because I was hyperventilating and I was just completely exhausted after just 200 meters of swimming. So I could really hurt myself very deep. And I had this experience a few times also in cycling where I basically crossed the line and I almost collapsed. And I think, I mean, sure, it's obviously a great talent to have doing this sport. And one sees that also with many high-level athletes, that they can absolutely go crazy. With me, it definitely also often had something a little bit ill in it. I was not quite healthy, and to a certain extent, I think I needed to punish myself for something.
Well, yeah. Thank you for being brave and saying that, because I think sometimes a lot of us feel that but don't have the courage to talk about it. And I've been following you for a number of years on social media, and I remember seeing one of your posts, just for the listeners, you moved to South Africa to turn pro. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of came together with meeting my ex-husband.
Right.
I went to do a race in South Africa. That was my very first time in South Africa. I didn't know the country at all. It was just this friend that's kind of asked me to do the Cape Pioneer Trek. I said yes, I went with. And third day in the race, I met my ex-husband, fell in love. And that kind of turned my life quite a lot around. Basically a 180 turn there. And he was a pro already, and he was kind of setting up a new team. and that gave me the opportunity to race in this team and basically turn pro. But it was definitely the love to him that drew me to South Africa.
Right. And I remember seeing one of your posts where you were talking about being homesick. And I can understand that, because when I moved to London, I felt homesick. But I think, if I look at your story, you've had a lot of challenges to deal with. You experienced the death of your sister when you were just 10. Moving countries, going through the breakup of a marriage. Each one of those on their own is a lot to deal with. Tell me about that. And recently you've been very vocal too about mental health and depression. Talk us through that.
It's quite a lot to to go into.
Right.
I'll start there. The death of my sister was definitely a very traumatic experience for myself. I was with her when it happened, the accident, and it was very it's also special as a child to experience something like this. Is, I think, a little bit different. My dad passed away from cancer when I was 24, and if I compare, I mean, it's two very close people. It's a different. As a child, it really goes very deep, because you have no protection at all against something like this. It kind of shakes up your whole trust in life, and I think there's many things that come with it when one experiences that as a child. Which was definitely quite traumatic. Afterwards, it was not very quiet in our family. My parents got divorced. It was quite a messy divorce and things like that. So it was a very troubling time for me and the family, following after the death. So it was definitely, it left its traces, and there was definitely a lot that I needed to work through. I think if I look back now, how I was as a teenager, I was definitely very insecure, very needy for attention and love, because I didn't have like this home where everything was just nice. We had to stand on our feet quite soon. My mom left us, so my sister and I stayed with our dad. And he looked well after us, but it's not quite the same having a mom around.
Sure.
He's maybe a bit more talking about feelings and a little bit warmer than he was, maybe. So a few things were missing there, and I think that plus probably it's also very much in our family, depression. Definitely made me struggle a lot with my mental health. Already during my swimming, I could never be good enough for myself. During my school, I was never good enough for myself. I always had to be the best, so that I felt significant, so that I felt useful to this world, so that life made somehow sense to me. And if I didn't achieve what I was putting in my mind, I was not just a little disappointed. It felt so bad that I sometimes almost didn't want to exist anymore. And that definitely also was the case once I started becoming, it actually even worsened when I turned pro, because now
you have the pressure.
Yeah, you have the pressure. And at the same time, I moved away from my environment, which I built up over 26, 27 years, that supported me as now I was just dependent on my ex-husband, who was obviously, I was completely in love, everything was just pink and cloud seven, and in the beginning, But then after about half a year here, reality struck, and I kind of realized, oh wow, shit, I only have him in a way, you know. Of course, I have people. I met people there, but it was pretty superficial still. I didn't have that. There weren't those meaningful relationships that I've built up in Switzerland over the years. Family was obviously missing, and just knowing about how things work in a country, you know, made you very dependent on someone. First of all, I mean,
especially in South Africa.
Yeah, and I mean, like cell phone account and everything, and like, that was in a time where I didn't have a smartphone. Like, I wasn't just calling and texting with my mom all the time. We were somewhere out in the bush at a race. And, I mean, we haven't heard each other in a month, you know.
Wow.
So, and we couldn't afford. We were financially quite tight. So, I also I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford like just internet everywhere and so on. So, I really didn't have a smartphone, so calls were very limited. And yeah, it was really tough. That combination of changing my whole life, you know, turning it upside down, plus then having the pressure to perform in something I was extremely new at. When I turned pro, I basically raced mountain bikes only for one season. And there I go, start basically preparing for my first epic. That was March 2011.
Wow.
After I've basically just raced as an amateur for 1 year. And immediately there was the expectation to win this race.
Wow.
I was like, coming from my ex-husband, I was racing with him. And he was kind of, you know, already like speaking out, like, yeah, we want to go for the win, you know. And I was racing against the team that was our biggest competition was Esther Suze, who was the current world, European and Swiss champion and an absolute legend in mountain biking already then. And I was like, yeah, how is this even you know, the pressure was absolutely massive.
Do you ever look back and actually wonder how you got through that time?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, sometimes I really think, geez, it was almost impossible. And I mean, back then I was just like feeling like a failure, and I should do better, and I should, you know, just manage everything like from the word go. But now when I look back, I actually feel a bit sorry for myself because you just can't expect that, you know.
Right.
My expectations were way too high for myself, and I was just so incredibly nervous. It was so stressful that I many times was close to quitting my career because I almost couldn't cope with it. So yeah, I'm actually quite proud how I pushed through it all.
As you should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually that first Cape Epic, which was where I came second behind Esther, but we won the last stage. I mean, I'm actually the most proud of this race because the circumstances and, I mean, against who I was racing, I mean, she was really the benchmark. And how well I did in this race, despite I was throwing up the whole night before this race.
Wow.
We had endless troubles with like breaking the saddle the day before and the car breaking down the day before.
Wow.
It sounds really like untrue story, but it was really all so hectic. I lost my contact lens in the prologue. It never ever happened before. Anyway, so to get through this race was quite massive.
That's
and actually
amazing.
The way we did was quite good.
Wow. I mean, I get nervous when I have to go and cycle with my local guys group. So I can only imagine what must have been happening for you. Tell me, tell me what's changed, if anything, now. Like, have your expectations of yourself changed, or have you just got better at dealing with pressure? Because, I mean, you've excelled at an extremely high level for a long time.
Mhm.
I mean, when I saw your victory the other day with Robin at the Swiss Epic, I I just was like astounded. I just thought that's absolutely incredible. Has ha, is how you are with yourself changed, or what's changed?
Well, definitely a lot changed. I mean, um, my biggest downfall, or what do you say, like the biggest struggle I always had in life was probably dealing with pressure and my expectations and stuff like that. It was so bad actually that when in South Africa would call it the matric. Here in Switzerland, it's called the matura. It's
Right?
basically
Your
finishing
final
high
year.
school,
Yeah.
final year. You've got your exams. Oh, well, no, actually, it was even earlier. The first exams were even worse. It was kind of middle school. I was around about 12 years old. And there in Switzerland, it kind of decides whether you go to this level school or that level school. Like
Right.
there's like a little bit of exams coming up. And so it was a test situation. It was pressure. And it was the one day I suddenly had I was paralyzed. It sounds very weird, but it kind of started in my leg. It went up. Then I had a funny feeling in my arm, and suddenly I couldn't talk anymore. So my parents, they actually thought I had a stroke. They immediately drove to hospital with me. So I couldn't speak. I could read something and I could understand it in my head, but I couldn't bring it out.
Right.
Which was obviously quite a scary, scary feeling. And this just went through. It was like almost like a attack kind of thing. And it passed, and everything was fine again. And later on, we did a lot of examinations and things. Doctors thought, it's just stress. So actually, stress was so bad that I managed to paralyze myself.
Wow.
A few years later, the matric, end of high school, same thing, just before the exams. But this time I couldn't see anymore. Very weird. I could see just the peripheral stuff, like just on the side, but I was sitting in class, I was looking at the projector, and I couldn't see what was actually projected onto the screen. Also very weird. It just passed after a few hours, and also just like this extreme stress situation. And obviously all races or competitions, it was huge trauma, huge stress
Right.
every time. I was really a very difficult person around that time. And so if one looks at me, like I really don't have a talent in this, but somehow I felt that this was really a big problem for me. So in a way, instead of just giving in and saying like, this is something I can't and staying away from it, it was really something I wanted to get better. I wanted to throw myself into even more because I just wanted to figure this out. And I think that was also a big reason why I was so fascinated by sport and wanted to pursue it more, because it was the best test of my mental capabilities. So I kind of threw myself into it again and again. And I mean, already from going paralyzed to half blind to just throwing up was a progress.
Wow.
I mean, you can't go worse than paralyzed,
Wow.
almost. And really, I mean, now I stand at the start line, and I'm as calm as I can be. I'm as I want to be. It's the perfect tension. I mean, you need to
Right,
be a little bit
right.
tense, like you need to be alert, you need to be on, you need to be sharp. And definitely that I am, but it's not like I have a blackout or I completely mess things up and, shaking and never mind all the paralyzed blind and vomiting and whatever. And that for me is actually the biggest success for me. Really,
Wow,
like I'm the most proud of actually
wow.
how I could change with this, because it was so hard for me, so stressful. Every race I was a complete mess the days before, and I mean that was actually one of the biggest reasons our relationship didn't work, because I mean we were both racing, and being with someone that's such a complete mess that needs all the attention, and while he was also in a way, it's always stressful before a race, and yeah, you need to get ready, and it's then it was hard for him to care so much for me and bear with the big mess that I was. So yeah, but the process of it was, I mean, that was not in a day. Yeah? It was a very long time. And
Sure.
I think the crucial part was probably the divorce. Um, it was really where I was on at my worst ever. I was
Well,
completely broken down. So I had to pick up the pieces and build myself back up. And I think that's where the process really started off, sorting my mind out.
mm, I think one of the things I really admire about you is your ability to address your challenges and lean in. I think to some extent, really, truth be told, I think all of us feel we're in a mess and all of us have challenges. But I think I myself often think, well, if this thing on the outside of me just changes, I'll be fine.
Mhm.
And what I see in you is you leaning in and going, okay,
Well,
I need to be different and I need to address this instead of, well, I wish this thing around me would just change.
there the pain really comes in.
Right.
Then you weren't far enough down yet. You
Right.
know, you only really start properly going into the very deep stuff when you just have no other choice,
Right.
and when it's really painful. If you, I don't know, I mean, if you're struggling at work and, like, I don't know, you have an issue with your boss and it drags you down, and things are just never really bright, but you can kind of balance it out, and you have a private life, and you go on holiday, and things are fine there. You're not really forced to sort out this issue that you maybe
Mm,
have with your boss, and maybe also the reasons behind why there is even an issue. Maybe you have some complex or whatever you should work on, but you don't really have to, because you have enough time on
mm,
holiday or at home where things are okay. But I was really on the ground.
right.
Um, Surely also the depression got me there. Like I mean, I think my brain struggles to cope with such things. I have probably some chemical and some um, structure in my brain that just is tending towards depression very quickly. But the divorce, that was that was the toughest thing ever, because in a way, I had two very close people passing away in my life, and it's very tragic.
Mm,
But when someone passes away, your whole environment is there to support you.
Right.
Everyone feels sorry for you. Everyone is carrying you. Everyone is looking after you, nursing you. And
right.
you really like carried through this thing because everyone understands, or kind of at least understands, that this is very painful. But divorce is very different. Suddenly your life just divides in two.
And
the people that are behind your partner, and it's a death.
It's a
like
death of a relationship.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And suddenly your most important people, and I mean, my ex-husband and I, we were together 24/7. Basically, we shared everything, like literally everything. We were so close, and plus I was then also away from home. Um, it was the most horrible thing ever. Feeling so alone and not knowing who you can trust,
Right.
who's really behind you, who's really where you can really go and pour your heart out. Because I also had to be very careful to who I say what.
Of course.
Because sometimes you just have frustrations that you need to get rid of, but and you're gonna talk bad about your partner because it has to go out, But I was in a way, we were known as the racing couple, and I was known as the mountain biker in South Africa, and I had very little people that just were friends, like, because
And thank you for being so vocal. I really, really think it's important.
I think also just something very important to add here is because a lot of people, like I said, if the person dies, if you have experienced trauma, then people are very understanding that you're feeling down, and obviously that it can lead to depression, But really, actually, I only started seeking for help properly when I didn't have a reason anymore, like no trauma as an excuse. So only 2 years after separation from my ex-husband, when I was still like struggling like hell to get my life together, I actually realized, like, oh wow, it's really something wrong,
Right.
So it was, before I was always, it's because of this and it's because of that, and I always had a reason why I would feel sad. And that's the very difficult part about it. You always find something to be sad for, but observe yourself and realize, like, okay, how long has this been? And that's where, that's then where one can define depression, if it is a real illness or if it's just a bad phase in your life.
Right.
And if this is over a long period of time without actually really any reason, and that's the worst. There's so many people out there, they have everything they need. They have the I mean,
right.
Speaking of South Africa, you could think, like, how can you be
sad
while these people next to me have nothing? I've got all I need in my life. And that's very, very important. Depression doesn't have to be because of trauma. Really not. It's an illness of the brain, and it's a deadly illness. It's like cancer. If you don't treat it, you're gonna die from it. And that's really what some people underestimate, that it's not just something you can pull yourself together and work through it and you're going to be fine, if you just quit your job or change your job, or if you just change boyfriend. No, it's something that needs proper treatment. I'm on medication since 4 years, and I needed it just to actually start working with myself, just to get to a level where the emotions weren't as overwhelming and just overtaking everything in me, so that I can actually just rationalize things a little bit and actually work on myself.
I think that's a great message, and I really want to emphasize that because there's still so much I want to chat to you about. But
Yes.
I do want to pause there for a second to say, I think we have a lot of shame, like, oh, if we're not struggling for food, or, if we have things, then we feel ashamed. And that's probably what prevents a lot of people from reaching out. But I think your advice is really, really sound. If you've been going through this a long time, it's time to seek help. And I mean, we would think nothing of going to a physio or a doctor to get antibiotics.
Exactly.
So I mean,
exactly.
Why not? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I really want to emphasize that message.
I use that often, if you have a cough, like cold,
right,
and it's not over after 2 weeks, you go to the doctor, no? I mean, well, if you have a cough, and normally it's like a week or two and it's over, and then you don't need to go to the doctor, you take a rest and whatever. But if it's more than 2 weeks, you think like, what the hell, this thing needs to be over, no?
Right.
And it's exactly the same if you're sad or if you're anxious.
And people stay depressed for years.
Yeah, very bad. Yes. Sometimes it's a little bit better, but really, is it really better?
Right.
Where's your benchmark?
Right. Thank you for sharing that. I hate this. I started this podcast recently, and I just love these conversations so much that I feel like I should start a series. So we're going to have this as our first episode, please, you and I. I wanna ask you a couple more questions. Like, where to from here for you for riding? And also, if you don't have that answer now, that's fine too. But I was just interested. Are you still loving it? You looked like you were loving it with Robin, even though you guys were suffering.
I would say, I definitely I was at a point when I was very depressed where I was like, somehow I need the sport. It was why I started. It was kind of a therapy.
Right.
I really feel, one talks about endorphins and all the kind of hormones you release. And it's definitely, it's definitely noticeable when I'm in off season and if I can't cycle for a week, there's a boost missing from just the moving part. So in a way, and also just like I said, the meditating a little bit on the bike and sorting out stuff. So I need the sport. But at some point I was really feeling it also kills me at the same time with the pressure. And now I really managed to start resolving this issue that I had, and now it's just the fun part left.
Amazing.
Really, like I'm sometimes a bit tense before a race, but I'm really actually super relaxed. It doesn't really matter so much anymore if I win or not. Funny enough, in the past it was actually I had to win so that life made sense to me. I had to win for this little moment of happiness because this was the only time I was, just like the few hours after I would have won a race, was the only time I was actually content with myself.
Wow.
But now I managed to become, or actually start to love myself. So I'm actually content with myself no matter what result I bring. So it doesn't matter. Of course I want to win.
Right.
It's fascinating for me to figure out, it's like this puzzle that I have to solve. and how can I, get the best version of myself, and how can I get faster, and how I want to beat, it's like a game.
Right.
But it's not anymore that it's the thing that makes me survive.
Sure.
So really, I actually really love it. I really enjoy it as much as never before.
That's profound.
I've always loved riding. I mean, being on my bike and just not having to worry about anything is the best thing ever. I really love this sport. It's so amazing, the mix of endurance, being fit, feeling healthy, and being in nature, traveling, seeing stuff, seeing amazing sceneries, and the skill thingy, like playing with a bike, and it's the best.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Definitely want to do it a little bit more if I can.
I honestly think everyone in the world should buy a bicycle, but that's a separate conversation. I want to ask you quickly, because I mean, we chatted about this before, but I'm a good old South African meat and potatoes kind of girl. And you've been vegan since when? 3.5 years now, right?
Yeah, something about there. Yeah.
How? Like, how?
Why the hell? Well, it actually, my boyfriend Franz Klaas, who I met in 17, he's vegan for 12 years already. Crazy enough.
Wow.
A real pioneer in that manner. We met, and first I was also like, no, a vegan, he must be so weird. And I
don't think you're weird, by the way. I just have no idea how.
No, I had quite a lot of prejudice because I don't know. I just thought like these people are weird. I mean, I'm a farmer girl. Grew up on a farm. We were slaughtering pigs and cows and bunnies my own little rabbits that I had. And I was consuming a lot of dairy, really. I mean, I was never really the biggest meat eater, actually, but Switzerland, dairy, cheese, milk, yogurts, everything I was very fond of. I couldn't have imagined a life without this stuff. But then I met Franz, and, well, he told me his reasons, and his reasons were ethical and ecological reasons, not actually health.
Right.
And I was like, well, this is quite impressive, because, I mean, health reasons, they are quite egoistic.
Sure.
It's just because of yourself that you do it. And I was quite impressed. I was just like, wow, he's actually doing it for others, for the animals and the environment. So it's quite like, this is quite impressive and interesting. And I was asking lots of questions, why, and
do you really, feel good when you race?
Yes, no issue at all. Amazing. Really, from the beginning, not a problem. I had a transition phase. Like, I wasn't just vegan overnight. I went without meat first. That was quite easy. Kept a bit of my dairy. Kind of cut down on dairy, made the transition to more like soy and oat and whatever milks. And then I was like, actually, it's not an issue. I mean, it was easy for me to make the transition because I was living with him, and obviously he showed me the way. So I had immediately my teacher who told me, like, okay, this is vegan, this is not vegan. I mean, otherwise you stand in the shop and you're going through labels forever, you know.
I know, my sister's
reading
vegan.
all the ingredients, you know. So it's quite helpful to have a little bit like how to go about person.
Well, when you I invite you to come and stay with me, because you have to come and see this part of Spain. But I will tell you that you'll have to bring some of your own food, because I always laugh with my sister, because when we go to a restaurant here, she's vegan and she asks for a vegan salad, and they put tuna in the salad.
Yes, I know.
No, it's not.
I had many vegan chickens already. It's like, cool, yeah, the chicken was vegan, but it's dead now.
So it's terrible, but I'm going to ask you the last question, which I feel could probably be an hour's conversation in itself. So I'm sorry to end on this question, but I do want to ask it, is around women's cycling. So for me, my thing around women's cycling is just that, honestly, the bike for me has been a salvation in many, many ways. And I just want to bring so many more people to the sport, because like I started cycling because I used to come home from university and watch Marco Pantani and Jan Ulrich racing, and I just was like, oh, I want to do that too. So for me, women's cycling is, I just want to get women on bikes. I want to bring more to the sport. What do you want for women's cycling?
Well, I definitely want it to grow. It's especially in marathon mountain biking, we unfortunately still have pretty small fields. Cape Epic, the fields are very small, which is very unfortunate. And I want just to have fair conditions and equal conditions to the men for the women in the sport, especially when we then talk professional sport. And I really, I'm working in the Rider Council of the Cyclist Alliance. It's a rider union for professional female cyclists. So it's really something I'm very passionate about, to basically pave the path for the future professional female athletes, so they have better working conditions, be contracts, that the teams, the whole setup, the professional setup that they are in, that they are really professional and treating their employees, which are the athletes, well. Which, I mean, is still an issue in the men's as well. It's not just in the women's.
Right.
Then obviously the organizations, I really hope that race organizers, federations, the UCI, the World Federation, is really putting equal standards in the sport. I mean, starting with prize money, which is actually the smallest issue that we have, but it's the most easy noticeable inequality and a big talking point all the time. But more important for us athletes is to have equal coverage. It's coming, but it's still, I mean, on the road, I'm talking now more on the road. It's very, I mean, it's been in the dark.
It has.
You had to know your channels to follow a women's race, and until very recently, and also in mountain biking. I mean, 18 Marathon Worlds, there was maybe 2 hours of the men's, 5 minutes of the women's race. Right. One issue I'm really working on is to have in marathon racing equal race conditions, meaning that us women get a separate start and that there won't be any drafting between categories, because if women may draft the men, it's a very unfair race at the end of the day.
Right.
So that's really important. And speaking of growing the sport, I think, and it hasn't been written down yet. I've had many interviews, but it was always kind of cut out. What I think, especially speaking about Cape Epic and all these stage races in marathon, I think we need to scratch that mixed category. If one looks at how many women are actually doing the epic, there are actually quite a few, but a lot of them are racing the mixed. Which just takes away women out of the women's category, which then makes us look like in a really an amateuristic field.
Right.
Even though the quality is really there. I mean, we had Flip and Anna van der Breggen and Annika Langwall teaming up together at the Cape Epic, and many other amazing athletes, but it's just the depth that's missing. And there's so many great women, and it doesn't even matter if they're gonna finish on the podium or not, but we need to have a great depth, which will then push each other all the way to the front. If place 7 is fighting with place 8, it does something to the ones in front as well.
Right.
Anyway, I also feel that, it would be basically the easiest way to increase the number in these kind of races. But yeah, I really just hope that by seeing more women on the bike, by televising it more, bringing it more in the media, that all the brands
absolutely
do their adverts with women.
Absolutely. That's
2014 Specialized. I was racing for Specialized back then with Annika. They did 0 about our race back then, and we won everything. It was only about the men,
Amazing.
So it's also each and every brand. So there was a huge
I feel it's
change.
systemic. And each of us, and that's part of why I wanted to start the podcast, is I want to show seemingly ordinary women, because I was a ordinary woman before my bicycle, that cycling is possible and getting more women into the sport, and each of us working in the areas. So 100% agree with you.
What one also just has to keep in mind with this, because I often, obviously, when I had discussions about prize money and, when I'm pushing for a separate start, and then they say, yeah, but you're so little women, and it's da-da-da-da. And I'm like, and why are you not more yet? This kind of question. Then, I just point to history and say, look, the first men's Olympic cycling event was in 1896. The first female Olympic cycling event was in 1984.
Right.
That's almost 100 years.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. The
That's
sport,
crazy.
Just that fact, it explains so much.
Right.
Why we are there where we are.
Right.
We are catching up,
Yeah. But we're still years behind.
Yeah, we almost 100 years behind, but it's the curve. If one looks at the development of women's cycling, it's exponential.
Right.
And obviously, it will change.
It will.
Just to look at cross country, I was racing Albstadt in the Olympic year of 2016 before Rio. It was already a much bigger field at that World Cup than at any other one. It was maybe 75 women starting. This year it was 100 and something starting. So it's already 30 more on the start of the World Cup. It's almost on the level of the men's. It's almost there that you actually need to limit it.
Right.
And at some point, these girls, also in South Africa with the Spur League, where I was an ambassador for, it was a lot of girls. They weren't just 5 standing on the start line. There were 40. So it's coming,
It's coming. Ariane, I feel like we have to continue the conversation at some point, because honestly, talking to you is really, it's not just inspiring, it's transformational. So I really want to thank you. I want to thank you not just for inspiring me personally, but just your activism, and not just in the world of cycling, but in the world of humans. So I really hope we can continue the conversation. I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope you are gonna take up my offer to come and stay in Spain at some point.
Definitely, would be very happy. I hope it's helping someone out there. That would be the greatest pleasure for me. And I just wish for women's cycling to flourish. And
Absolutely.
I mean, how can you not love it?
I know,
Once
right?
you've tried it.
That is the final
Yeah.
statement. How can you not love it?
Thank you.
My name is Lisa, and thank you for joining me. You know what to do. Subscribe, please share with a friend. Most importantly, get on your bicycle, drag your mates, drink some coffee, and I will see you next week for another episode of Velo Dulce.